Welcome to Medici Project, Urban Missions webinar. Very, very excited to have you guys. Thank you so much for joining and taking a few minutes to check out our Urban Missions projects in both Atlanta and New York City. Whether you're a student pastor, student leader, Christian school, any of the above, or anything else dealing with students, high school, middle school, or college. Very, very excited to have you on the webinar today. Of course, if this is something to where you get interrupted or you want to come back and check out, all of these webinars are recorded and uploaded to our YouTube page at Medici Project. So without further ado, let's get started. I wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is PJ Simmons. I've been serving with Medici Project now for about 4.5 years. Have absolutely loved my experience. Our founder, Vince Hungate, who is not on the webinar with us today, but definitely has been watching these and checking these out, and you will get the chance to meet him at some point if you were interested in diving into an urban missions trip with us. A little bit about me. I grew up right outside of Memphis, Tennessee, in a small town called Covington. I turned 18, moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, actually outside of Chattanooga, a town called Cleveland, where I went to school at Lee University, where I studied discipleship ministry. From there, I moved to Augusta, Georgia for a small stint at a local church there, and then moved to Atlanta and connected with Vince in about 2011 and got enough funding for the organization to hire me on full time. In the last 4 years, I've had just an incredible honor and privilege to invest in millennials, literally from all around the country, who join us on urban mission trips and service learning experiences in the urban context, to lay out some vision and philosophy behind why we do what we do and who we are at Medici Project. Our hope above anything else is to really help students connect the correlation between faith and vocation, really through a framework and a filter of serving others. And so what our hope is to kind of be the behind the scenes guys for students, helping them navigate and influence culture through whatever vocations that they choose and whatever sectors of culture that they find themselves in. And so you see here a small diagram of what we call the 7 channels of cultural influence, which are 7 channels of culture that any of us will find ourselves in. You have media, business, education, government, the social sector, church, religion, arts and entertainment, those type of things. And we believe that as students move on into college and then move on into their vocation, into business, that we can be gospel bearers in these various sectors of culture, not only with our mouths, but the things that we are creating. And so you say a student wants to one day open up a web development business. Well, how do you create an organizational culture that values things like livable wages, values family, treating customers correctly, and not trying to get one over on them? Or you have individuals who are wanting to go into the nonprofit sector, maybe the church sector. How do you start businesses? How do you go about starting a nonprofit? How do you influence the church with the gospel through the lens of serving others? And this is really kind of the vision, philosophy, the whole gamut of what we're trying to teach students as we engage in these service urban mission experiences. One thing about millennials is that, with all of the negative statistics or even ideas, it is not a lie that they are the most influential generation within culture today. At the top of the influence pyramid, we have 18 to 24-year-olds. Below that, 14 to 17, 25 to 34, 10 to 13, and 35 to 45. Not saying that if you're over 45 years old, you have no more influence. But in regards to influencing culture, the arts, fashion, entertainment, even the election of political figures, direction of where church is heading. They are navigating the direction of where culture is heading. And so that's why our hope at Medici Project is to really invest and believe and equip millennials and students to influence culture for the common good and for the sake of the gospel, specifically leveraging their passions and their skill sets. So let's dive into our trip opportunities that we have with Medici Urban Mission Opportunities. We are in 2 cities currently, Atlanta, Georgia, and New York City. Both amazing, amazing cities. Personally, super passionate about both. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I have spent a lot of time in New York, both with internships and serving with groups who join us from all over the country. Give you a little bit of statistics regarding the needs of both of these cities. Because we're in the urban context, we are specifically focusing on urban poverty issues. This doesn't necessarily box us in to demographics of homelessness, but it ranges from all kinds of experiences that poverty is affecting within the urban epicenters, specifically within Atlanta and New York. So you can look at a couple statistics. 27% of residents in Atlanta live below the poverty rate, where 24% in New York live below the poverty rate. 30% of children are living below the poverty rate in Atlanta, where children 18 and under make up the majority of those living in poverty in New York City. And so you can check out a lot of these statistics, a lot of disproportionate statistics, even as in regards to race relations and single family households. Pretty incredible needs in both of these cities. One thing that we do with Medici Project, with our philosophy of service, we operate on what we call a philosophy of service with dignity. And so what this means is that your students will not be making peanut butter sandwiches and just walking around downtown and passing them out to homeless people. We want to expose your students to very innovative and strategic models of organizations who are serving people on a daily basis. And so there's a couple of key reasons why we do this. Number one, our hope is for your students to walk into a service experience and realize, man, I never knew that I could leverage my passions and my skill sets to serve people in such a way. And so that may range all the way from a feeding program to working in a nonprofit coffee shop in the middle of a low-income demographic that doubles and triples as a after-school tutoring program, an art gallery, a place that is offering jobs for people in the community. So what we envision is that a student may walk into an experience like that and think, man, I've always wanted to open up a coffee shop one day. I never knew that I could do that and serve people at the same time. And so that is our hope. And so these are the issues that we're actually focusing on within the urban context with Medici Project. We're focusing on issues such as human trafficking, homelessness, refugees, education, health and nutrition, homebound elderly, and environmental issues. And those service projects range from tutoring, after-school programs, working in homeless shelters, learning and experiencing from those on the front lines fighting human trafficking, and just so much more. And we have just a ton of fun serving and helping these organizations that are fighting the fight on a daily basis in both of these cities. It is just an incredible experience. Another thing that we incorporate into our urban mission trips, both in Atlanta and New York City, is helping students develop a proper biblical worldview. And this isn't so much of a worldview aspect of being able to pinpoint, issues such as apologetics or major world religions. We're focusing specifically through a biblical context on how to figure out your passions, your purpose, and your skill sets, and how to leverage that through the context of the gospel to influence your circle of communities, wherever you go in life. And so that is something that during a few nights during your week, your stay with us in either in Atlanta or New York City, we will be going through worldview teaching, correlating how do you understand the gospel as it relates to community engagement, to your own personal lives. How do you figure out your passions, your calling, your purpose in life? What is the beauty of the journey that God has you on? Next deal, I want to talk about benefits of coming either to Atlanta and New York City. And what I'd like to focus on here is the benefits of coming to a urban missions trip with Medici Project is that it fosters community. It's a tangible application of the gospel. It's an alternative summer option, creates an experience, develops biblical worldview, and it is a whole lot of fun. Number one is that our trips foster community with your youth group or your school or your student ministry. As you engage and go on a trip, it creates forced interaction. You guys are eating at the same place. You guys are sleeping at the same place. You guys are serving together. You're learning together. You're able to ask questions, dialogue, small groups, those type of things. And your trips are specifically catered for your students. And so what happens is when you come on an urban missions trip, you are not part of other groups that are on missions trip in the same city. We specifically develop an experience in conjunction with your student leader, your youth pastor, really developing an experience on what you believe your students will gain the best, or what you hope for them to gain through an experience like this. The next one is tangible application of the gospel. We follow in a book that was very influential for us, was a book called Generous Justice by Tim Keller. Throughout the week, students are able to really get a tangible understanding of the gospel message that is intentionally weaved in the experience. And to pull out an illustration that Pastor Keller uses in this book, he says, when you pull up to a red light and you see a homeless man on the side of the street, essentially, when you see them, you're looking into a mirror. Because when you see the dirtiness, the brokenness, the shabbiness, essentially, you are seeing in them what God sees in us. And that is the message that we want to portray and help students understand through these urban mission trips. You also have an alternative summer option. There's no short of options during summer for youth groups, youth camps, sports, vacations, those type of things. But we believe that an urban mission trip can develop many, many, many more intentional opportunities for your students to engage with one another, to be developed as leaders, to not only just be consumers of a conversation or a fun trip, but really to be givers, to give back, to understand practical, hands-on understanding of the gospel, where they're not only hearing it, but they're putting it into action, and it's becoming real for them. Our urban mission experiences also creates essentially what we call an experience. And experiences are memorable. Meaningful experiences are the driving force that fosters community, learning, and action. Our biggest win at Medici Project is not that you and your students come to a urban missions trip in Atlanta and New York City, but more so than that, it is that if you go back into your local community and this experience creates a culture and an environment where your students are passionate about engaging with each other, as well as engaging and serving your community. That's what we define as a huge win for our urban mission trips. And another thing about our biblical worldview process during our urban missions trip is that I know we talked a little bit about the passions, the purpose, the journey, but one thing that we always love to leave off with is that we want you guys as student leaders and student pastors to be the heroes. In essence, it's really easy to either bring in a guest speaker or come on an urban missions trip and almost romanticize things in a form or fashion. And so this is why we specifically try to prop you up and position you as leaders to be the predominant go-to people for the questions that your youth and that your students will have ongoing. And so during our Worldview sessions, we will end the week working with you, helping our students understand, giving them an opportunity to ask questions to you guys. How did you figure out what you were passionate about? How did you figure out what your purpose or what your calling was? How are you leveraging your skill sets and your things to influence culture for the sake of the gospel? And what we find is that as students go on, they will begin asking questions as the years go on to you about, how do I choose the right college to develop these passions and leverage these skill sets to live out the gospel with my vocation, with what I'm choosing to go to in life, with the communities that I'm wanting to engage in. We want to position you as the people that your students go back to answer these type of questions. And one of the last ones, our experiences are a whole lot of fun. We love weaving into the week opportunities for you guys to have fun in either Atlanta or New York City. In Atlanta, we have the Braves, Six Flags, the Georgia Aquarium, World of Coca-Cola, Centennial Olympic Park, Center for Civil and Human Rights Museum, the High Museum of Art, Stone Mountain, and many, many more. And of course, New York City, you have the Empire State Building, you have Central Park, Statue of Liberty, Times Square, Coney Island. And if none of that, floats your boat, then if you just ride on a subway, that is plenty entertainment as it is, I promise. So let's talk about our options for urban mission opportunities. Atlanta, Georgia, we have 3 to 5 day options. A 3-day opportunity is $199 per person. 4 days is $249. 5 days is $299. New York City, a 7-day is $599 per person. All of these prices include lodging, pre-trip curriculum, trip curriculum, a t-shirt, some meals only in New York City, all logistical planning for your trip. And it also includes transportation in NYC. And so what we want to do as an organization, we want to take away all the headaches, all the heavy lifting, all of the figuring out what to do. We want to take that off your plate. We really, our responsibility, really the only responsibility that we want you to have is get students to come. We want to provide you with all the promo material, all of the experience information, working with you, showing you around the city, serving alongside of you. We literally want to take care of everything for you to make your job easy. And so it's a kind of a no hassle, no worries, plug and play. Hey, let's just get our students there. It is going to be a great, great trip. So what's next? We would love to hear from you if you're interested in a trip. Feel free to email me at pj@mediciproject.org. That's pj@medici project.org. Also, you can check out our website, mediciproject.org. And under our website, there's a page for urban missions under the programs button. Programs page on our website. So feel free to check that out. Reach out to me if you have any questions about our trip opportunities, and I would love to connect with you. Also, feel free to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everything that we're at is under @Medici Project. Would love to hear from you, would love to engage with you through those platforms. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us on our webinar today. Man, it means so much that you would take the time out of your busy day to connect with me on the webinar. Feel free once again to reach out to me if you have any questions. My name is PJ Simmons. Feel free to reach out at pj@mediciproject.org and check out our website at mediciproject.org. You guys have an awesome day. We'll talk to you later.